You have no right to receive any support. That single sentence from my own mother shattered the illusion of peace that had filled the dinner table only moments ago. It was a glamorous dinner held solely to celebrate Ava's and my college graduation. My father, in high spirits, praised Ava's grades, while my mother gushed about the elegance of the dress Ava had chosen. Now, Ava, this is a gift from us. With theatrical flair, my father slid a cream-colored envelope across the table. Ava squealed with delight and accepted it with reverence. Inside were a plane ticket to Paris and a check for $20,000. Go broaden your horizons in Europe to your heart's content. Consider it an investment in your future. At those words, Ava nodded with a look of bliss and cast me a triumphant glance. My mother watched the scene with dreamy satisfaction. For a brief moment, silence fell. I opened my mouth quietly to put an end to this farce, and to wager on the faintest chance that something might change. Father, Mother, I'm also planning a graduation trip with my friends. Would you be willing to support me as well? In that instant, the warmth and harmony in the air froze solid. The smile vanished from my mother's face, and my father frowned irritably. Ava looked at me with a mocking grin as if she had just found something amusing to watch. Then my mother spoke those words. You have no right to receive any support. My father followed, driving the knife deeper. Madison, investments are made where there's a return to expect. The fragile thread I had always believed in snapped inside my heart. I merely lifted the corners of my lips in a faint smile and slowly rose from my chair. I placed my napkin quietly on the table and gave my frozen family a small bow. Thank you for the meal. My voice was flatter than I had expected, carrying no emotion at all. My father began to mutter a rebuke, but I ignored him, turned on my heel, and left the dining room. Even as I felt their stares stabbing into my back, I never once looked back. Each step up the stairs felt strangely light. It was as if the heavy chains I had carried for years had finally been broken. I closed my bedroom door and locked it. No tears came. Instead, an uncanny calm took over my mind. I took out an old smartphone from my desk drawer, one that had hardly ever been used. Then, sitting on the edge of my bed, I opened the contact list without hesitation. Delete this contact? Without a moment's doubt, I tapped yes. Father, Mother, and Ava. One by one, their names quietly vanished from my world. When all the deletions were complete, only the names of my friends remained on the screen. The world suddenly felt clearer. This was the beginning of a quiet, flawless revolution. One to reclaim my life. The next morning, before dawn, I left the house. I carried only a single backpack packed with the bare essentials. My destination was South Lake Union, a district in Seattle filled with tech companies. I spent nearly all my savings to rent a small, old apartment that would become the base of my revolution. My new life began at a cafe in Seattle's IT district. By day, I was just a barista surrounded by the aroma of coffee. By night, in my tiny apartment, I became an architect building a new world of my own. Most of the regular customers were engineers, and being among them transformed my self-taught coding from a mere hobby into something more. One of them, an engineer named Noah who always ordered a latte, was particularly struck by my code. You shouldn't leave this as just a hobby, he said, becoming the best teacher I could ever ask for. He didn't simply give me answers. He taught me how to think like a real engineer, the very essence of it. The world that my family had cast aside gave me new companions and a purpose I could believe in. The idea came to me right there in that cafe. I began recording the arrival times of the delivery trucks that came every morning. Within that chaotic data, I saw a beautiful puzzle waiting to be solved. Small businesses were being left behind by the logistics networks of large corporations, struggling with inefficiency. One night after closing, I shared this with Noah. What if we could build an affordable, easy-to-use cooperative delivery optimization system for them? At my words, his usually calm eyes lit up with the fire of a true innovator. That's not just an idea, it's a revolution, he said, scribbling equations on a napkin. Madison, let's change the world together. When I told the cafe owner that Noah and I were starting our own company, he smiled and said, I knew you'd never end up as just a barista, and sent me off with warm encouragement. We named the company Wayfinder. Noah became the CEO, and I took the role of co-founder and CTO. We began our work in my tiny apartment. Sleep became a forgotten luxury, and our world shrank to the size of our laptop screens. Our very first client, of course, was that cafe. When the system ran flawlessly and the owner's smartphone notified him of the exact delivery times down to the minute, the look of astonishment and gratitude on his face became our first and greatest reward. Word of mouth spread quickly, and the company grew at a remarkable pace. Soon, it caught the attention of an angel investor. In a glass-walled conference room, he looked at me with a gaze full of respect, so unlike my father's, and said, "I want to invest in the future you're building." At that moment, I finally understood the true meaning of the word investment, the same word my father had once used. It should be a word filled with hope, one that believes in possibility and entrusts the future. 5 years later, Wayfinder had become known as a game changer in the industry. The wealth I earned wasn't something to flaunt. It was a shield, forged from countless lonely nights of coding line by line to protect my freedom and peace, which no one could ever violate. But there was still one thing I longed to have. A real estate app had randomly shown me a minimalist house made of glass and wood, standing by the shore of Lake Washington. The space was filled only with silence, light, and water, and I was instantly captivated. The price was $6.2 million. I decided to buy it without hesitation. On the morning of the move, I stood in the middle of the empty living room and took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet cedar and new beginnings. Looking out at the calm lake beyond the glass walls, I whispered softly, "I'm home." For the first time in my life, I had found a place where I could truly feel at peace. That tranquility, however, was abruptly shattered on a bright Saturday afternoon. While parked under a tree, nibbling on berries I'd bought at the market, my eyes caught sight of something out of place on the quiet lakeside road, a flashy sports car. Wondering whose car it could be, I watched as someone stepped out from the passenger seat, and my breath caught. There was no mistaking it. After 5 years, I was looking at my own face, my twin sister Ava. She walked toward the gate of what she clearly saw as her dream home, her steps light and dreamy. "It's so beautiful." Her entranced voice drifted toward me on the wind. Maybe it was because we were twins, but ironically, her taste was remarkably similar to mine. She walked toward the gate of what she clearly saw as her dream home, her steps light and dreamy. Just as Ava noticed the small nameplate by the gate and began to read the name engraved on it, a woman from the neighborhood, out jogging, spotted her and called out cheerfully, "Oh, Madison, you're dressed so casually today, and that sports car looks wonderful on you." Ava froze. The woman looked at her puzzled face, then clapped her hands in realization. "Oh my goodness, you must be her younger sister, Ava. Madison told me you're twins, but you really do look identical. I'm so sorry for the mix-up." With an apologetic smile, the woman jogged away. Left standing there, Ava turned pale, as if she had just seen a ghost. Her eyes fell again on the nameplate. There, engraved clearly, were the letters M. Brooks. The realization hit her like a thunderclap, that the dream house she admired belonged to the sister she had always looked down on. And worse, that she herself had just been recognized merely as that sister's younger sister. In the next instant, she pulled out her smartphone and screamed, her voice shrill with panic. "Dad, what's going on? Why does Madison have a house like that?" Her father's flustered voice echoed from the speaker. Crying hysterically, Ava collapsed to the ground. I simply held my breath and watched the entire scene unfold. I felt no pity, only a quiet certainty that the inevitable moment had finally arrived. That night, in an upscale restaurant downtown, Ava was furiously recounting the afternoon's events to her fiancé, Lucas. In the 5 years they had been together, Lucas had almost never heard her mention her sister's name. He had assumed that the topic was something forbidden in her family, a wound best left untouched. But the way Ava spoke of her sister tonight was beyond anything he could have imagined. "Can you believe it? That Madison is living in a mansion in Medina. She must have cheated her way into it somehow. She's always been like that. Always scheming, always—" Lucas hit a heavy sigh and quietly interrupted her. "Ava, calm down. She's your sister, isn't she? Why do you talk about her that way?" He exhaled deeply, filled with disappointment. Then, at last, he revealed the truth he had been keeping to himself all this time, quietly but unmistakably. "Ava, do you remember the boss I once told you I respected? Our CTO? I never mentioned her name to you, did I? Her name is Madison Brooks. She's your sister." The color drained from Ava's face. Lucas looked straight into her stunned eyes. The woman you call that woman is the one who taught me what makes this job truly meaningful. The one you called deceitful is, in truth, the most sincere leader I've ever known. While you were busy looking down on her, she became the kind of person every one of us respects and wants to follow. Each of Lucas's words struck Ava's pride like shards of glass. This wasn't a simple disagreement. It was the feeling of having one's values completely shattered by the very person one loved. The more he praised Madison, the more Ava's own humanity seemed to crumble by comparison. There was no greater humiliation. From the day Ava discovered my house, my phone, which had been silent for years, began ringing endlessly. Because I'd kept my number private, every call went directly to voicemail. One by one, the messages piled up. Ugly, desperate attempts by my family to fill 5 years of silence. The first voice was Ava's. She was sobbing, incoherent, screaming insults at me. "Why didn't you tell me? My Lucas works for your company? You did this on purpose, didn't you? Just to humiliate me. It's your fault everything's ruined." She blamed me for her wounded pride, as if nothing about her had changed since the old days. Next came my father's heavy, deliberate voice. "Madison, it's your father." I heard from Ava. I was surprised, but... Anyway, let's talk properly, like adults. After all, we're family. There wasn't a trace of remorse or apology in his tone. And finally, my mother reached me directly through my company's secretary. "Madison, I finally got through to you." Her voice on the line was bright, as if nothing had ever happened. "I've been so worried about you. So, the house Ava mentioned, it's true? That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you, my daughter." I stayed silent, listening. Then she continued, "And you know, Madison, you're an adult now. You must understand. Family is about helping one another. Your father's job has been difficult, and the roof needs repairing. You'll help us, won't you?" The moment those words reached my ears, my mind went cold as ice. I answered in the same quiet, even tone I had used 5 years ago. "I refuse." "What did you say?" "Mother, investments are made where there's a return, aren't they? And once you told me I wasn't worthy of such an investment. My assessment of that truth hasn't changed." I hung up the phone and opened the drawer of my desk. Inside was an envelope. An invitation. Education support gala dinner. Yes, helping one another is indeed a wonderful thing. Then tonight I'll show them who truly deserves my investment. After hanging up on my mother, I gave instructions to my secretary. As for this year's Education Support Gala, we'll attend as planned, as a platinum sponsor. But instead of the CEO, I'll be delivering the sponsor's address myself. And please send special invitations to my parents and my sister. My secretary looked momentarily surprised, but nodded without a word. When my parents received the invitations, they called in a frenzy of delight. "Madison, we saw it. What a lovely gesture. You really are the pride of our family." I answered in a voice devoid of all emotion. "Yes, Mother. After all, I owe everything I've achieved to you. This party is my way of expressing my gratitude." It goes without saying that they took those words at face value. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom of Seattle's most luxurious hotel was thick with the excitement of the city's elite. The chandeliers sparkled like stars, and an elegant waltz floated through the air. My parents thrived in that glittering world like fish in water. My father, cornered by fellow guests, spoke with pride. "Well, I must say, my daughter never ceases to amaze me. It's all thanks to my careful upbringing, of course." My mother and Ava stood at the center of a circle of well-dressed women, laughing softly. She was always special, you know. She grew up just as we hoped she would. They spread their embellished stories freely, basking in the glow of my success as if it were their own. Everyone around them looked on with admiration and envy. At the peak of their vanity, they were savoring what was perhaps the most dazzling moment of their lives. I watched them quietly from the wings of the stage. The stage was perfectly set. Now it was showtime. The lights dimmed and a single spotlight shone on the stage. The MC's voice echoed through the hall, calling my name. "And now, please welcome the CTO of Wayfinder, one of Seattle's leading innovators, Madison Brooks." Amid thunderous applause, I walked calmly toward the stage. From where I stood, I could see my parents and Ava sitting in the front row, in the special guest section. I caught the movement of my mother's lips as she leaned toward a woman beside her, whispering, "That's my daughter." I stepped up to the microphone and let my gaze sweep across the hall for a brief moment. The powerful figures of Seattle looked back at me, their eyes filled with expectation. And in the front row sat my family, blissfully certain that their daughter was about to give a speech honoring them. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Madison Brooks." My voice carried clearly to every corner of the vast ballroom. "It is a great honor to join this wonderful gala tonight as a sponsor. I firmly believe that support for education is the most valuable investment in our collective future." I pronounced the word investment slowly and deliberately. I saw my father nod with satisfaction. At Wayfinder, our company is sustained by many talented young people. Their passion and brilliance are what shape the future of Seattle. It is our duty as a company to support them in every way we can. Applause rippled through the room. My parents' faces glowed with ecstasy, as though they were bathing in the light of shared glory. I waited until the applause faded, then quietly stepped into the heart of my speech. When the hall grew silent again, I continued slowly. "And tonight, aside from our company's contribution, I would like to take this opportunity to announce a special scholarship from me personally." A murmur of anticipation spread through the audience. In the front row, my parents seemed certain that I was about to announce a scholarship bearing their names. "The donation amount is $20,000, and the scholarship shall be called the Scholarship for Young Women Once Told They Were Unworthy of Support." The air in the ballroom froze solid. The host, caught off guard by the unscripted turn, hesitated before regaining composure and addressing me professionally. "What a noble gesture, Miss Brooks. If you don't mind, could you tell us the story behind that very unique name?" Every gaze in the room turned toward me. I gave a calm nod. "Of course. It was 5 years ago, on the night of my college graduation." I spoke without naming anyone, recounting only the facts, quietly, steadily. There was once a young woman who asked her family for a small contribution toward her graduation trip. But while that same family handed her twin sister $20,000 for a trip to Europe, they told her, "You have no right to receive support." And then added, "Investments are made only where there's a return." The ballroom fell silent, as if all the air had been drawn out of the room. Everyone understood exactly what was happening. In that heavy silence, not a whisper stirred. All eyes shifted between me on the stage and my family, frozen like statues in the front row. I want to make sure that here in Seattle, not a single young person with talent and passion is ever dismissed after one shallow evaluation. This scholarship is my investment, for every woman who once stood where she did. I bowed deeply. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the ballroom erupted into thunderous applause. Not the polite kind, but a complex sound, filled with genuine admiration and quiet contempt for my family. Bathed in the spotlight, I looked directly at my parents. They trembled, paralyzed by the horror of public exposure. Silent justice had been served. After the gala, I left the venue without speaking to anyone. I declined all interview requests and ignored every invitation to post-event parties. Everything I had to say was already said on that stage. The rest was for society to judge. And society's judgment came swiftly and mercilessly. By the next morning, Seattle's social circles were buzzing with the story. No one named my family directly, but the silence and the cold, pitying glances that followed them spoke louder than any public condemnation. My father lost much of his credibility overnight. When he tried to arrange business lunches, everyone declined, citing busy schedules. A man so cold he saw his own daughter only as an investment. That label shattered what little social standing he still had. My mother, too, found herself quietly, but unmistakably, ostracized from the local community. Within her circle of socialite friends, she became an outcast, a pariah no one wanted to listen to anymore. The world of appearances she cherished so dearly, her entire sense of belonging, was gone. And Ava. Her downfall came the fastest. When Lucas learned of what had happened at the gala, he ended their engagement that very weekend. I can't accept that you, or your family, treated someone I deeply respect that way. Rumors of the broken engagement spread quickly, and Ava lost even the shallow sympathy of her friends. The woman who once believed she had everything suddenly had nothing left to hold on to. I only heard about it quietly, through others. I hadn't lifted a finger. All I did was tell the truth. The tower of sand they had built collapsed effortlessly under the light of a single truth. A year had passed since everything ended. My days flowed peacefully in the lakeside house. Wayfinder had continued to grow, and the scholarship I established had already sent 3 young women to college as its first recipients. Each time I read their letters of gratitude, my heart filled with quiet joy. One afternoon, I noticed an unfamiliar envelope in my mailbox. The sender's name, Ava. I hesitated to open it, but finally I broke the seal. Inside was a letter, the handwriting trembling, rewritten over and over, far from the confident flourish I remembered. Dear Madison, I've been thinking for a whole year about what I lost and what I did to you. When Lucas left me, when my friends abandoned me, I blamed you for everything. But I was wrong. What I lost wasn't trust or love, it was my own vanity. All my life, I could only feel valuable by looking down on you. I'm truly sorry. But the letter didn't end there. Father quit his job. His pride wouldn't let him stay after everything. Mother couldn't bear the stares and has barely left the house since. That home was always just a monument to our pride. Once the money to maintain that illusion was gone, we couldn't stay there any longer. Now, the 3 of us live together in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. Father and Mother have regretted what they did to you every day since that night. I know we have no right to ask, but would you give us the chance to say just one thing to you in person? We're sorry? I looked up from the letter. Outside the window, the sunset painted the surface of the lake a deep orange. No tears came, but somewhere deep inside, I felt the ice around my heart begin, just slightly, to melt. I fed Ava's letter to the fire in the hearth. I had no intention of carrying the past into my future. For several days after that, I did nothing. I simply worked, gazed at the lake, and lived as I always had. The turning point came that weekend. One of the scholarship recipients sent me a short video message to share her recent news. Blushing shyly, she told me that the small app she had developed had won an award at her university. Miss Brooks, I wouldn't be here without the opportunity you gave me. One day, I want to be like you, someone who can invest in another person's future. When I heard those words, I suddenly understood. The revenge I had once begun had quietly transformed into a cycle of creation, of hope. The arrow I'd loosed to sever the past had somehow sown the seeds of a new future. That night, I made one phone call, to Ava's new number. Hello? A trembling, nervous voice. It's me, Madison. On the other end of the line, I heard her catch her breath. Make time this weekend, the 3 of you. The place will be that cafe near our old house. Ava sounded startled, but I continued quietly. Don't misunderstand me. This doesn't mean I've forgiven you. But to bring my story to a true close, I have to turn the final page myself. After hanging up, I gazed out at the lake shimmering under the night sky. True strength isn't found in revenge. It lies in having the courage to move forward, beyond anger, beyond hatred, on one's own 2 feet toward the future.